Hi, I'm TBABY, I'm a dude, and this is the third and final part to my My Little Pony Virus AU. In this video, I'm going to be redesigning Rainbow Dash and Twilight. If you haven't seen part 1 or 2, I highly recommend checking those out. They're kind of all connected in a way. And also, make sure you check out my last video for my Draw This in Your Style challenge. If you join the Discord and participate, you can win a prize from me, which will be a fully rendered piece of anything you want. First, let's talk about her design. For whatever reason, while drawing her, I felt like I needed to keep her pretty close to how she looks in the show, which I think is silly now, and I have no idea why I set that rule for myself. But this ended up leading to a lot of frustration and some awkward phases during her design process. And on top of that, this was actually the last pony I drew. I actually drew Twilight first and then Rainbow Dash. And at that point, I was quite tired of drawing ponies. So that definitely impacted the amount of effort I put into this and how much time I was willing to put towards this piece of work. But all I knew going into this design was that I just wanted her wings to be somewhat colorful. And later in the piece, I tried to implement like a cloud motif. And a few days after I actually did this piece, I revisited the idea in like my sketchbook as like a little doodle, and I ended up liking it a lot, so I'll also include that. But I made her a lot fluffier, and she definitely looks more like cloudy in that. But onto the lore, actually. So Rainbow Dash has found herself in a pretty interesting position. She manages a lot of ponies and guides them on missions, and she's also the lead in a project called Cloudy Day, which is crucial to their survival at this point. Project Cloudy Day is the strategic movement of clouds over areas of high density of infection. And since I'm basing the virus off of the swamp flower from this book and the show, I thought it'd make sense for the ponies to intentionally block out sunlight in these areas and hope to kill off the plants. But there are quite a lot of risk factors in doing this. The wrong clouds get mixed together, it could create like an unpredictable weather phenomenon, and that could cause a lot of problems. Like it can make a tornado, a gust of wind can make spores travel straight towards the safe house, and it's a very complicated situation. So she heavily relies on kind of the science team in their little facility. Now, earlier I mentioned she commands and guides a lot of ponies in these projects, which is slightly misleading on my part, because although Rainbow Dash seems to be giving out these orders, she's actually working as a proxy for Twilight. Because Twilight has a sense of control over Rainbow Dash, but not many other ponies because of recent actions that I'll get into later. And given this odd situation, she gives Rainbow Dash orders, and then Rainbow Dash gives those orders to other people. In general, just kind of like a chain of command. And I fully recognize that this may seem out of character at first for Rainbow Dash, because she's definitely not the type to be pushed around and told orders. However, I believe I have a pretty good reason as to why she is the way she is. Going back to how I said Twilight has a sense of control over Rainbow Dash is because of one reason, and that's because Rainbow Dash was the one who got Fluttershy infected. No one else knows that this is how she got infected and this is how it happened, except for Twilight. And Twilight uses that to her advantage at any moment she gets. Because now, Rainbow Dash is filled with like this horrible guilt, and she no longer trusts her own judgment, because she's literally the sole reason as to why her friend is suffering now. There's no way in hell she'd ever be okay with commanding an entire group of people to do a dangerous project. And she's also really scared of Twilight telling others that this has happened, because she doesn't want to be hated now, like balls deep into the fucking apocalypse. That's just a terrible thing. So now she just sits quiet and gets like bossed around, because like what can she like actually do in this situation? Because there are lots of moments in the show where Rainbow Dash is wrong or has been caught lying, and a lot of times she'll try to like double down on it. She never likes being wrong, And I think this is kind of emphasized in how she's been keeping quiet, because like this being found out would like be the end for her. She wouldn't even know how to react or tell people. She's terrified about how her friends would react in the first place. And so it's just a really awful and muddy situation. So this just about concludes Rainbow Dash's section of the video. If you haven't watched the first 2 parts, you should, because this is heavily connected to everything else that has happened. As for like relations with other people, Rainbow Dash doesn't really talk to her friends anymore. She frequently avoids Pinkie Pie, and she tries her best to stay away from Applejack and Rarity. But since Rainbow Dash works so closely with Twilight now, she's just kind of bound to see Rarity often, because with there being so many experiments going on, Rarity has to come in and clean up whatever was left. And so Rarity kind of has a suspicion something's going on, but it's not really her place to say anything. So this is the finished piece. I think it's okay. And this is the sketch, which I think is a lot better. And now for the one and only Twilight Sparkle. This is probably one of my favorite designs. I think I really nailed the color and the body. And also, I just really enjoyed rendering this piece. The colors specifically are probably some of my favorites, because I know there have been a lot of complaints about Twilight and how her colors are never reminiscent of the actual Twilight hour. So I wanted that to be reflected in her design. I implemented those like pink, oranges, and deep blue hues later in the piece, and I also decorated her skin with markings of constellations and whatnot. But one of my favorite things about Twilight is she is a part of the science team. And if you guys thought Pinkie Pie was a crazy mad scientist, you're in for a treat. So for how Twilight's been doing in the apocalypse, she's at her breaking point. Most of her values have been abandoned just for the sole sake of finding the cure to this virus and advancing in technology. And since Twilight transformed into an alicorn for fulfilling her destiny and essentially becoming the essence of friendship, her recent behavior has caused a rejection in her alicorn magic, which is why her wings have actually started to wilt and her colors have overall become a lot less saturated. And one of the main reasons as to why her magic is being rejected is because of some of the things she has done lately. And obviously, one of those terrible things is controlling Rainbow Dash with blackmail. Like, one of the only reasons she keeps Rainbow Dash around or even talks to her is just so that she can take advantage of her and just use her however she wants. And of course, the other horrible thing she started to do is obviously the experiments, and specifically the ones on Fluttershy. Like, the only reason Fluttershy hasn't been killed other than Discord's request, which the ponies could easily ignore, is because of Twilight insisting she's needed for research. And at first, the experiments were small and harmless. Like, they were simple examinations, taking small DNA samples, and overall monitoring her health. But they quickly developed as Twilight realized she was getting nowhere with her data. The experiments started to get very extreme. And actually, looking back on Fluttershy's design, we can see her veins are greatly emphasized. This was originally a stylistic choice, but with more thought, I have a pretty good explanation on why they look like that. Because if we take a step back and acknowledge the honey that Rarity has as a preventative, Twilight wanted to see what that honey would do when injected directly into the bloodstream. And this proved to be pretty effective in weakening the virus. However, it didn't fully kill it. Upon further examination, it definitely killed off a lot of the cells, but there were still heavy traces of it infecting the body. In discovering this, Twilight decided to inject herself with the honey, completely disregarding any potential side effects. And if you look really closely, like probably towards the end, you can actually see blue veins in her legs and ears. Initially, she thought she was in the clear, but over time her judgment got a lot blurrier and her rationality faltered. Because believe it or not, injecting magical blue honey into yourself isn't the smartest choice. Who would have guessed? And this decision also contributes to her further deterioration of magic. Now, getting on to like her relationship with people, obviously Twilight is not a good person anymore. She's not the essence of friendship that we thought she was. She has definitely taken a very dark turn in these troubling times. And so she limits a lot of her social interactions. For one, fear of just being infected, and two, people just don't really like her anymore for very obvious reasons. She's kind of become psychotic and obsessed with these tests. The only ponies who really interact with her directly is her very, very small science team, along with Rainbow Dash and Rarity. Rainbow Dash for obvious reasons. She's getting blackmailed by Twilight. Twilight wants her under her control. And Rarity because she's a part of the sanitation team. And whenever Twilight fucks up and makes a mistake, it's Rarity's job to fix it and clean up any traces. The reason why the sanitation team is so important is one, not to stop the infection of the virus, but because Twilight doesn't just experiment on the infected. There have been multiple occasions she's taken perfectly healthy ponies and subjected them to horrible tests and usually killing them or completely traumatizing them. And Rarity's job is to keep this under wraps, because if she doesn't, she's quite simply terrified of what Twilight will do to her. And she can't risk getting killed or put away in like some far dungeon because she still has Sweetie Belle to take care of. And a lot of ponies have taken notice to Twilight's sporadic behavior and her tendency to be just overall a shitty person. And this is not limited to Applejack or Pinkie Pie. Both of them have started to steer clear of Twilight. They're not fully understanding like the great depths that she's been going and all the horrible things she's done, because it's generally pretty secretive, but both of them have a general vibe that she just should not be fucked with anymore. Like, they shouldn't just be around her, period, because of just her behavior. So yeah, we've pretty much reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the redesigns. You'll see them both again shortly after the small speed paint. But I really do encourage you guys to stick around, because next week I'll be making a character design tutorial and I'll be starting a new redesign series, and I'll specifically be doing creepypastas. So comment down below which creepypastas you want to see me redesign first. I'm gonna get to most of the main ones like Jeff the Killer, Ben Drowned, all of that stuff. But your engagement and feedback means so much, and I love hearing your ideas and stuff. And make sure to join the Discord to participate in the Draw This in Your Style. And now, Twilight Sparkle in her full form and beauty. Here's like the close-ups of the veins and constellations. Ugh. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.